It's question time. Hi, I'm TJ Walker, and this is going to be a fun-filled hour. We've got a lot of bright young minds with us today. I'm speaking to one of the great communications consultants in North America. Janice Seto is with us today, and we have her entire class at the University College of Northern Manitoba joining us today. We're taking their questions, some of them brave enough to appear on camera. Some may want to just use their voice. Some may want to text a question. However you want to communicate, I am here for you. Janice, welcome.
We're very, very honored to be able to stream and ask questions live to you from Northern Manitoba in Canada. So thank you very much, TJ, for your time.
Glad to be here. Let's dive right in. What do you and your students have on your mind?
All right, folks, they're a week away from doing a major presentation to, let's see, politicians. So TJ, we know you train politicians, so there's going to be politicians, there's going to be business people, and there's going to be community economic, especially from the First Nations of the Opisco Cree Nation. So they have something that they are a little bit nervous about. And I say, we got to bring in TJ because you're the expert on this, dealing with politicians and business people. Thank you.
And just thank you for that setup. And just so I understand, your students are giving presentations as if they were politicians in student government, or they're giving them to real politicians?
They're giving to real politicians and real business people. They've been analyzing the survey and they say, okay, what's happened to the survey? What recommendations do you have? And so they're a little bit nervous. Big time people with big time money.
And are they going to be actually trying to get investment for startups that they're doing? Or what is the goal of the presentation?
Yeah,
Meaning, what do they want the people they're speaking to do after they finish the presentation?
Well, the organization, the students are working, they're the ones who have given them the survey information. And they say, we want you to come up with a great report and a presentation. And then the organization, they say, we're going to take it from there for the next 20 years. So the data that they've got is going to be great for the economy of this part of the province. They're playing a very important role.
Mm-hmm. And so you want the business people and the politicians to take actions based on the data you're presenting.
That's right, folks.
Okay. So the first thing I would ask you to really think about is, of all the data, what's most important? Because if you convey all the data, if everything is important, then nothing is important.
They have the maximum of 90 minutes. And what they're trying to do is to say, we've got some important recommendations for various stakeholders. So from the school system to different levels of business investors on how to improve the economy. So for them, if they can get those actionable items, recommendations across, and then they support the recommendations with the data from the survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's two ways of going. I'll tell you what most people do. What most people do, doesn't matter if they're a 20-year-old student or a 75-year-old mid-level manager. What most people do is they say, oh, I want to cover my you-know-what, and I don't want anyone to accuse me of leaving anything out. So let me cover all the data quickly, go through things quickly, get it all out there. That way, everyone will think I'm smart. No one will accuse me of leaving anything out. And you may practice that, go through bullet points, and get comfortable with that. And you do that, and you finish it, and you think, wow, check that box. I got it all out there. And you pat yourself on the back. And then if you go around the room and you put 10 US or Canadian dollars in front of every person in the room and said, tell me one thing you remember from that speech and I'll give you the money. You never have to give away any money because nobody remembers it. Now, I've worked with a lot of politicians and business leaders in Canada and all over the world. And I've worked with executives in every industry. And I always start off with the same question, which is, think of the best speaker you've heard in your field, in your industry in the last 5 years, 10 years, maybe ever. Now, tell me every message you remember from that speech or that presentation. Not whether you thought they were funny or they walked around a lot, or actual messages. What do you remember? And sometimes people say, teacher, I don't remember anything. Everyone's boring in my industry. Sometimes they remember one idea, sometimes two, occasionally three. Every 3 months, someone will remember, 4 ideas. Once every 6 months, someone will remember maybe 5 ideas. That's from the best speaker they've ever seen in their life. Now, I'm not talking about in a university setting where you could have a teacher and you're writing down every notes because you got an exam next week. I'm talking about in the real world, outside the academic environment where there's no testing. So I've never found anyone remembered more than 5 ideas. And yet everyone makes the same mistake. They stand up and then, well, you can see on my first slide here, 89 bullet points. And on my second slide here, here's a graph that shows the interrelationship of 8 different variables every week for 2 years. It's so complex. People might understand it in the moment, they don't remember it. So the big challenge for people who actually want to motivate people to take action is you've got to get people to remember your ideas. They're not going to remember anything if you present too many data points. And the way to make someone to remember a data point is you got to tell a story. You got to give an example. You have to flesh it out. You have to package it with some emotion. These are politicians. All day long, people are saying, give me money for this, give me money for this. It's the world's greatest crisis if I don't have a lamppost replaced on my street. And they're a little jaded because everything in the world can't be a crisis. So that's why it's critically important you use judgment. So much of being a good speaker has nothing to do with hand gestures or eye contact or having a deep voice. It's about judgment and figuring out of all these facts, all these data points I could present, here are the handful I'm really going to focus on. Yeah, I'll give people a report, an email, a PDF of everything else, but I'm only going to focus on these handful of points. Even when you have 90 minutes, which seems like a long time, it's not. So that's my first big thing is think about, of all these proposals, what's the one thing you want them to do? Do you want them to invest more money in public transit to help the environment? I don't know what it is, but pick one specific thing. Then figure out what ideas are going to resonate with those politicians, those business people, and really narrow it down to a handful. Come up with specific stories, examples, case studies. If you're going to use visuals, you're completely wasting your time if you put text on a slide. I'm sorry. I realize everybody does it. Complete, utter waste of time. There's absolute zero empirical evidence that putting up a slide with a bullet point on it, talking to a politician or a business person, increases the odds of them remembering your message. It's different in a classroom. If Janice were my fantastic communication skills teacher and she puts up a bullet point with a slide, I can write it down, go home, study it, get ready for the test. Nobody in the room you're talking to, politicians or business people, is going to be writing things down, everything you say. They might be writing something down. Guess what? It's their grocery list for later in the afternoon. They're not writing down everything you're saying. So that means you have to present in a way that's completely different from how people present in the academic world. And I know Janice is a great teacher, but I dare say a lot of your professors are boring and data dumpers, but they can do it because you're going to write it all down and study it because you have such an incentive to learn and remember what they're saying. Because your teacher has the power to punish you. If you don't write it down and memorize it and pass a test, you can flunk the test. You don't have the power to flunk that politician or that CEO if they don't pay attention to you and write it down. So it fundamentally changes everything about how you do it. So my biggest advice, figure out what you want them to actually do. And it can't be follow 89 recommendations on how to make the world better. That's just too vague and fuzzy. Focus on the one thing you really want them to do. Come up with no more than 5 messages that you think might motivate them to want to do it. Then come up with a story, examples, case studies to make that come alive and memorable. Then I want you to practice on video. And Janice, I'm sure you've done a good job of poking and prodding them to do that. Most people just won't do it. And they have all sorts of excuses. Look, we're all good excuses. Back when I owned a big house in a garage, my wife would say, hey, TJ, clean the garage this weekend. Well, I really can't. I got this. I just didn't want to do it. I could do it. I was lazy. Anyone in the world who has a cell phone or has one friend with a cell phone now has all the skills and all the technical equipment that politicians I worked with 35 years ago spent tens of thousands of dollars to do. Because we used to have to hire TV operators, TV camera man, and it was men because the cameras were 60 pounds. And it was a big, elaborate production to rehearse a presentation. You can do it now for free with your cell phone. Now, here's what everyone misses when it comes to practicing a presentation on video. And I'm sure, Janice, your students know this, but what everyone thinks is, oh, you practice on video and then you look at it and you figure out what you did wrong. Complete waste of time. If that's all you do, you might as well not even practice. The whole key to practicing on video is you've got to record yourself speaking, watch it, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, do it again. Do more of what you like, do less of what you don't like. Keep doing the rehearsal until you can look at the video, say, wow, that person's great. If I can speak half as well as that person, I'll be the star of the public hearing or the workshop or the convention. And you're pointing to a video of yourself. At that moment, it becomes virtually impossible to be nervous about speaking because you've already seen the result. You already know how you're coming across. The reason most people are nervous about speaking is they're thinking, uh-oh, what if I'm really boring and no good and nobody likes me? Well, guess what? Most speakers really are boring and no good and nobody likes them. So it's a completely rational fear to have, but there's such an easy solution. Figure out how to say something interesting and good and come across comfortable with it. Easiest way to do it is by practicing on video.
So TJ, there's 6 students. They're about to graduate. They have to finish this course in order to get their diploma. Just wondering, do we have time for each of them to ask you a question for expertise?
I'm here.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Okay, so who's the first one? Jada?
Okay.
Jada Thomas.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, how do you end your presentation on a high?
That's it. Any questions? Bye. That's what most people do. Basically, anything other than that is going to stand out. Because what most people do when they end their presentation, it's like an airplane. It's, everything's fine. You're going around 600 miles an hour, point after point after point, and then it's just, oh, I'm done. That's it. Any questions? Goodbye. And you act nervous and uncomfortable, like you want to get off stage because you're embarrassed. That's the number one novice mistake. Or it's really more like a car that's going down the highway 70 miles an hour and it just runs out of gas. Try to figure out something, I guess, a little less violent ending for you there for the analogy. So it doesn't have to be a poem or a nice heartwarming story. It can just be, you summarize your main points using different words. Don't say in conclusion. Just summarize your main points and stop, smile, step back. So when you're getting ready for your presentation to these political leaders and these business leaders, I want you to go in with extreme confidence. You're confident because you know that you've really thought about, what do you really want them to do? You're not going to do some big data dump. You know what you want them to do. You know your top 5 messages. You've practiced great, interesting stories. You practiced on video to the point where you know exactly how you're coming across. And that way, when you go in to give that presentation, there's not any doubt in your mind. You know you will be a master communicator that day. Good luck. That's how you end a speech. That's how I would end your speech today. My speech to you. I just summarized the key points, talked about how it did something to help you, finished up, said something, good luck.
Yes,
I paused.
that was a great demo. Thanks, TJ.
And it's very, very simple. Don't say, is that it? Any questions? Pause for a second. Smile for a second. And it will cement in them that, wow, this person was really confident. Maybe I should listen to them. Maybe they're authoritative. Maybe they have real poise. Maybe I need to hire this person to be my legislative aide. You never know where it could go. And don't be in a big rush. It's fine to take questions. Just pause for a second. I'm not saying you have to expect a big standing ovation, but pause and just stand there for 2 seconds. It's a great way of ending.
All right, let's see if we've got who's got the next question. Is it Vanessa who's got the next question?
So we're working in a 6-person group.
I'm sorry, I am having difficulty. You don't have to be on camera if you don't want to, but if you can maybe walk closer to the laptop or wherever the microphone is, it would be better.
Is this better? Vanessa, where's Vanessa?
Hello?
Yes.
So we're working in a 6-person group and we're all gonna be up there like presenting to a crowd of 30. So do you think that there's a, what do you call it? When we switch off from one section to another, like how should we do this?
I lost you. I understand there's a group of you. You're handing off from one speaker to the next. Are you asking how should you make the transition or the introduction?
Yes, the transition. That's right. The transition from one speaker to another. That's a great question.
I think that's pretty simple. Just you can say, and now my colleague Janice will talk to you about the specifics of where we should spend money on infrastructure. Just one sentence like that would be enough. Keep in mind, though, you aren't really giving a group presentation. What do I mean by that? It's when you're speaking, this is the good and the bad about speaking. When you're speaking, all the eyes are on you. It's about you at that moment. Now, I'm not saying you have a big ego or should have a big ego, but that's part of what scares people. Everyone's looking at you at that particular moment. It doesn't matter how good or bad any of the other 5 people are. People are watching you. They're judging you. If you're interesting, they'll pay attention and they'll like you. If you're not interesting and it's a boring data dump, it's not that they're going to hate you or anything. They just are going to instantly forget it. They're going to be checking their email and their text. That's what they're going to be doing. So I wouldn't worry about the transition much. Focus primarily on what you have control over, which is you could be, if you've got 5 minutes or you got 20 minutes, focus on making your ideas come alive to people, to be interesting to people, to be memorable to people. And then introduce your next colleague. A lot of times people get so sort of hung up on, I want the perfect segue, and I want this to get, I want the flow the right way. That makes a big difference in novels and text, the way people read. I have found with speaking, that's just not how the typical audience processes things. So I do want you to realize speaking is a solitary thing, even when it's a group presentation. And you're not really speaking to 30 people. You're speaking to one person because every audience member is sitting there thinking, should I listen to this person or should I pretend to listen and really see if I've had an interesting text come in or check my email? That's the only thing that's ever going on in anyone's audience's mind. They're not thinking, well, I'm a part of this 30 people, so let's see how they play to the crowd. That's not really what people are thinking about. So I want you to think of it as how can you have essentially a one-on-one conversation? There's some dynamics that are different because you want to look at different people in the room and not just look at one friendly face. And
Jay,
let me
thank
say, and it's perfectly fine if anyone doesn't want to speak on camera today, but I would highly recommend that when you rehearse, you do rehearse on camera. Because a part of what makes people nervous about public speaking is thinking there are 30 people in the room and they're looking at me. And what do I do with my hands? Does my face look stupid? Do I have a jelly stain from breakfast today? We're thinking about all those things. And guess what? People can look at you. They can notice those things. So it's not important that anyone looks a certain way or everyone has to be corporate. What is important is that you look the way you want to look, that you're coming across the best for you that you want to come across, and that you don't have to think about it. You don't want to be thinking about how you look, and you want to be confident that you're coming across the way you want. And also realize if you just deliver information that's interesting to people and memorable, and you didn't bore them to death, they're going to love you and not care what you look like. All of you, from what I hear, have better hair than I do. Nobody cares about my hair. Well, my wife does something, but nobody really cares about what I look like. Why? Because I'm giving them ideas and tips and tricks and tools and information to help them be more successful in life. They don't really care the fact that, I'm getting, 3 chins, as my daughter likes to point out, and I have wrinkles and everybody has certain physical flaws. Nobody cares. Now, if you're trying to be a Hollywood star and appear in romantic comedies in multiplexes on Friday night, yeah, your looks matter. For most of us, that's not our goal. It's certainly not our goal when we're trying to give a speech and present ideas and present information and persuade audiences. So again, I don't want to seem like I'm shaming anyone who doesn't want to get on camera, but this is an opportunity to get a little more practice. The more you're practicing on camera in front of people, the harder it is to be nervous speaking on camera in front of people. So you might as well use this as a free learning opportunity. But even if you don't feel like it today, I'm begging you, practice your presentation on camera and watch it before you give it. Because what most people do, not just students, but everybody, they think a speech is about, let me stay up till 2 a.m. writing brilliant insights and writing and rewriting and word processing and all of that stuff. And they understand I've got to go through revisions, drafts to refine and improve it. But then they get up to give the speech, and it's the first time the words have ever come out of their mouth. So yes, they have the 14th draft of the text, but the speech is not the text. The speech is you actually up front talking to people. So if the first time you've ever said the words is in front of people, that's the first draft of the actual speech that people receive. And it's also the rough draft because it's the first time you've ever delivered it. Well, the rough drafts of most things are awful. That's why we call them rough drafts and we do them over. How many of you would dictate an essay for any of your teachers? Dictate it once, not spell check it, not edit it, not review it, and just send it in as your term paper. You probably wouldn't because you'd be afraid it would look horrible. It'd be a jumble of mess. There'd be spelling errors, grammar, text, all sorts of problems. You don't expect to get the first draft right, even though you've been taught how to write every day from kindergarten or first grade through college and graduate school. You don't expect yourself to get the first draft right. And yet people routinely expect the first draft of their speech to be great. Remember, the speech is not the text. And I'm not saying words or messages don't matter. The speech is you are actually speaking. That's why it's crucial you rehearse, because if you don't, you're really showing contempt for your audience. You're saying to those 30 people, hey, half hour of your time collectively, or an hour of your time, which is 30 hours, is less important than an hour of my time to rehearse. Now, how do you like me? Well,
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't like you because
They
you're
wouldn't.
contempt for them.
So, TJ, I think we have time for questions. Do you folks have any more questions? TJ, what's really great is people ask a question and you're able to add more. This is adding value. Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
so. I try.
I
Thanks.
think so. Any other questions? I thought I'd just ask one more time. No? Okay.
Well, one of the questions I get asked when I speak to colleges and other places is, you finish a presentation, you think it went well, people were paying attention, and you're thinking, wow, they love me. They're going to ask me 50 questions. And you say, and I'll now take questions, and it's silent. What do you do? My recommendation is don't do what most people do, which is scurry off, act embarrassed, because it leaves sort of a bad note at the end. What you should do is, does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to take questions. And if you don't see anything, then you can say, while you're collecting your thoughts on that, I can tell you a common question I do get from so many people like you is, ask yourself a question and then give an answer, and then say, and I'll take the next question. A lot of people, most people don't want to be the first, but a lot of people don't mind being the second. So you kind of prime the pump that way. Does anyone have an additional question?
That's excellent point for us to end on. TJ, this is wonderful. We really appreciate your time. I mean, I've been talking and saying I really appreciate your time. Just let the students say something.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, Janice, let me practice. Let me
Already.
practice. Oh, I'm sorry, someone's talking. Let me be quiet.
Somebody said, I'm feeling more confident already.
Okay. Can you tell me why? And actually, let's let someone who hasn't talked yet. And can you give me the name? You don't have to be on camera, but Janice, can you tell me the name of one student there? Perhaps someone, ideally someone in the corner, maybe who's got other things open. Can you give me the name of one student?
I can give you Zoe's name.
Okay. So Zoe, I have a question for you. If you had a classmate today who just couldn't come, they got sick or they got stuck in traffic, and they said, what did I miss today? I heard we had some guest speaker. I want to know, how would you summarize anything I said? I don't mean that, oh, we had a good speaker. I don't mean what you thought of me. I want to know just what messages do you actually remember of anything I said? How would you describe what we've been talking about for the last roughly 28 minutes and 7 seconds?
How I would describe this, I would probably say that you gave us a good few pointers of how to transition our topics and this day to basically describe our key points in our presentation better and more elaborate, and to talk to yourself on a video camera, and to also watch yourself talk before we actually go to the actual presentation, and get more comfortable speaking. And yeah.
And if your classmate said, well, that all sounds fine, but Janice has told us that before, it sounds like the same old thing. Was there anything new or interesting wrinkle you heard? What would you say?
To end your presentation section, not so embarrassed.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm very happy to hear you even mention that, really referencing practice on video, because that I find is the single most important tip that separates people who give awful speeches and those who move up to great, is just doing that one thing. Not hard to do. People simply don't do it because they don't like to do it, and then they lie to themselves and tell themselves they don't have time. But what I just did there is something I want you to do, because quite often, if you speak to more than 5 people, especially if you're speaking for free or something, someone will come up to you and say, hey, good speech today, good presentation. What most people do is they just say, oh, thank you very much, I appreciate it. It was good, wasn't I? don't just do that. Now, of course, be gracious. Say thank you, but then I want you to follow up and say, what do you remember? What messages do you actually remember? How would you describe this to someone who wasn't here, which is what I just did. And that's the ultimate test. You could be the worst speaker in the world and someone might feel sorry for you and say, oh, great speech. So just hearing their opinion of how you spoke is not worth anything. People can lie to you. They could be trying to flatter you. They could, want you to loan them $5 for lunch. There's all sorts of reasons someone could just tell you you did a good job. They could lie about that. They cannot lie to you and tell you they remembered your core messages if they really didn't. So that's what I'm most interested in, is always trying to figure out what sticks. Because a part of what makes a great speaker is they use every single presentation they give as a mini focus group to make their next speech tiny little 1% better. So they're always looking to hear what works, because quite often it may be an answer you gave to a question. It wasn't what you actually prepared to speak on. That happens all the time because someone's asked a question about something really, really specific and tangible. You then give an answer that's really specific and tangible and perhaps involves a specific case study, a specific story. That's what people remember. So you make a note to yourself. Next time I have to talk on this topic, I'm not going to wait for someone to ask me that question. I'll ask myself that question in the presentation, or I'll integrate that story right in the beginning or the middle of my presentation. And that's how you iterate and improve your presentations again and again.
TJ, thank you so much. We really appreciate. So the students that are here, we've got Jane and Vanessa, Walter, we've got Jeremy, we've got Corey, and we've got Zoe. You've learned a lot in this quick half an hour that you've shared with us. So, University College North, when I'm in Florida and I see you, I'm going to make sure that you get some swag from the UCN, the University College of the North, and I might even give you some copies of my.
They don't tell you at orientation. Better Grades by Janice. Great. And so, I am curious, what all do you teach in this course?
What is it that the students learn in this course? They're learning on how to work with clients. They're practicing how to be consultants, business consultants. You got a problem, we can help solve. And so a lot of this is client management, working in milestones and iterations and getting constant feedback. Okay. So yes, they're learning.
Now, I wish I'd known that, because there are exceptions to every rule. And I will say there is an established culture in the consulting world. The Bains, the Bostons, the really big consulting firms, where you come to the client once a month or once a quarter, and you go through reams and reams of PowerPoint slides and talk for 5 hours. And the clients, at some level, expect it, and you do it. So every industry is a little bit different. So the whole management consulting industry, there is kind of an expectation that you're going to give incredibly long, boring PowerPoint slides with bullet points. So what I said earlier, I still believe that putting a bullet point on a slide while someone's talking is not a particularly effective way of communicating. It is an effective way of justifying a huge consulting fee if you're a management consultant. I'm not suggesting management consultants don't often provide excellent strategic value to their clients and help them, and sometimes can make the difference of it going bankrupt versus becoming wildly profitable. So I'm not suggesting there is no value there, but so much of the management consulting world is about hiring a whole bunch of smart 22-year-olds and 24-year-olds to be on the ground, assimilating data, typing all day long, creating PowerPoint slides. And then the senior person comes in once a month or once a quarter, gives the presentation, here are our findings, and they're talking for 5 hours, and then they walk out the door with a $100,000 check. It's a good racket for a lot of folks. And it can be as a career path, it can be a great way of learning a lot about a lot of industries. A lot of CEOs, I guess most famously Lou Gerstner, who came out of the consulting world and then became the CEO of IBM. It was very successful for years. So it can be a great way of knowing a lot about a lot of industries, and then building a tight enough relationship with one industry and one company where you go from the consulting side to being a senior level executive at the company, in some cases the president and CEO. So I don't in any way mean to sound disparaging about the profession, but when it comes to the culture of giving presentations among the high level, big time consulting firms, there is kind of a culture of it's going to be long and boring and lots of slides because, we paid the hundreds of thousands or in some cases millions of dollars for this. So we expect you to give us a whole lot. Even then, I've never seen anyone get angry with a consultant who the first 5 minutes can really stand up, not a single slide is shown, and really talk to people in a compelling way about the most important idea that they're going to see in these 89 slides coming up. So being able to introduce it and really put a spotlight telling the most compelling story is still the best way to start a presentation. Most management consultants don't do it. Most of them start off with, good morning. As you can see on my slide here, today I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah. Most people talk like that and they can still be successful, but you will stand out
if they start
you
with
can
a story.
summarize strong. Because people are not consciously thinking of this, but every time they see you speak, they are making judgments about your strengths, your capabilities, your intelligence, your skills, your short-term potential, and your long-term potential. And if people see you sort of standing up, ignoring eye contact, reading the slides, reading the screen, I'm just here to be the assistant to the PowerPoint. I'm just here to go through the deck, and the deck is in charge. I'm just the little assistant. You position yourself as a mid-level bureaucrat.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. And a lot of mid-level executives at companies make a nice living and have good work-life balance. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want unlimited potential, you can turn it down. But if you want people to think of yourself as a true leader, leaders have to communicate to a lot of different groups. If you're the CEO of a company, if that's your aspiration, you have to speak to your customers, to clients, if it's a big company, you have to speak to 5,000 employees in the room at once and another 50,000 watching online. You have to speak to the media. Your job is about communicating effectively, by some estimates, 90% of your day if you're a CEO. You're not doing the accounting. You've got an accounting department for that. You're not writing the marketing newsletters. Your marketing department is doing that. The one thing a CEO cannot delegate is communicating on behalf of the entire company to the world, to stakeholders, customers, clients, the media, and to employees. So if you do have high aspirations, learning how to be a great communicator is a fantastic skill to master right now.
TJ, thank you so much. We really, I read this on behalf of the students here in business seminar, which is a second-year course in the Diploma in Business Administration at the University College of the North. We really appreciate your time, sharing your knowledge, and getting them a little bit more confident as they go into the presentation next Thursday. So they're I guess 8 days assimilating what you've mentioned with the data and what they found out, and I think that they're going to be really great. So thank you so much,
Okay.
TJ.
If I could ask just one favor, and then I'll let you go. I realize they've got other things going on, but if they want to practice their presentation and they want to do it privately, they can call my clone. I'm posting it right here in the comments section. So I now have a digital clone. Some people might not want to comment. I mean, here we are streaming live on 8 platforms. They might not want to do it in front of your own classmates. but you can practice talking your presentation
With your
to
clone.
my digital clone, and my digital clone will tell you what it thinks. And I'm using the word think, I'm anthropomorphizing. It's not really thinking, but it is analysis based on data because it's been fed with everything I've ever said, all my courses, all my books,
So you,
fed
they
into
could
my
give
clone.
feedback to their presentation with your digital clone.
Yes,
That's an
right
amazing
now
offer.
it's in an you push a button and you can just talk to it. So you could practice your speech. In the current iteration, it cannot critique your body language and voice tone, but it can critique your message and tell you what it thinks of the message, whether it's clear. You can ask it to, could I come up with better examples, or do you have an idea for a story for this? It can give you all sorts of suggestions. There's no charge. We're in this is an introductory sort of development phase, and no one's going to see it except for you. I can see a transcript of questions people type in,
Okay.
but I can't, I don't even know if it's recorded. I can't even see if you say something stupid. You could go into it and say, I want to give a speech why TJ Walker was the worst guest lecturer in the whole world. You could do that and I wouldn't see it. So I just put that out there.
I appreciate this. So I'm feeling some excitement here, and then we'll follow up. TJ, again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And to the rest of the people watching online, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to disconnect from this stream. I'll be back on my YouTube channel. And for those of you at the university, feel free to stop by anytime on my YouTube channel and to also watch the videos on demand, because I post not one, not two, but at least 3 prepared, edited videos on public speaking, communication skills every day on the TJ Walker Success channel on YouTube. So please stop by and occasionally learn, occasionally watch, and contribute at the way Janice does. And also, don't forget the book, What They Don't Tell You at Orientation, How to Get Better Grades by Janice Seto.
There's
Janice,
4 books in the series so far. So yes, check me out on Amazon. But TJ Walker's book, that's the first one you should get.
Okay. And Janice, when you have time, I want
Yes.
you to come back and we'll interview you about your books on Amazon Live, and you can promote your books. We'll hold them up. It'll be on the carousel. People can buy it while we're doing the show on Amazon Live. So please let me know and my staff know when you're available for that.
Thank you so much, TJ.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.